Hi, everybody, and welcome to our session this afternoon. So today we are discussing a cookieless future, which is coming really soon. And don't panic because we've got the solutions to keep you guys all happy. So the retirement of cookies has been a massive topic across a lot of our clients recently. There's been loads of different articles coming out about it, lots of different solutions, lots of rumors that are happening. So we just wanted to take a little bit of time, look at all the information that we've got, provide a few alternatives, some solutions, and also how we can kind of focus on a first-party data strategy. So we've got lots of good stuff to go through today, and we're really excited to have everybody with us. We know how many virtual events and webinars everybody's got at the moment, so of course this is recorded and it will be available afterwards as on-demand content. If you can post any comments or questions in the chat, we've got the lovely Steph that is moderating today and she'll make sure that everything gets answered. So yeah, just keep everything there. So we've got a little bit of chat, we've got a quiz to go through, and then we've got some more information for you, and then we'll have a good 10 minutes at the end for questions. So let's get started. So what we're going to cover today is we're going to talk about the issue, which is cookie retirement. We're going to go through why it matters and some different solutions that we can look at. So we've got different technology, we've got options for how you can build on your first party data, and the bits maybe that are going to be the IAB industry standards that people will probably be looking at as we get into the kind of end of next year, start of 2023. How's it going to impact? So I think there's a lot of concern about how much it's going to impact, or a lot of kind of scaremongering. What's the bits that we really need to worry about, and what are the bits that we can just relax and kind of focus on what we're doing. So we're going to move on to our quiz. So this is really just a bit of fun to see what are the bits everybody's worried about, what are the bits that you've kind of heard some rumours on, and some questions that we're interested in. So if I can just take a second and ask everybody to go to kahoot.it, that would be amazing. And I'm going to switch screens. Okay. And you're going to just get the game pin coming up just now, and I'll ask you to put that into your browser or on your phone. And I'm going to turn my volume down. So if everybody can put that in, so 165322. So you're going to kahoot.it and you're putting in 165322. And we'll give everybody a couple of minutes to join. And if we were doing this in real life, we would have lovely sugar or alcohol-based products as prizes for everybody, but virtually you'll just be getting a nice thumbs up or a pat on the back, and get to be champion of your digital knowledge. Okay, so we'll just give everyone a couple more minutes to join. And we're going to get started. Okay, so the topic today is cookie retirement. And I think we've got 8 questions. So first of all, just to warm everybody up, are you ready? Let's get everyone online and on board. So select your answer. And this is really just to see how you get used to using the app and the browser. So you're ready, super excited, hang on. You think that you're going to win. And let's see. Amazing. So everybody is excited. We've got some fierce competition and ready to go. So first of all, are you worried about cookie retirement? Yes, I'm freaking out. No, I anticipate solutions are coming. Really hoping that this session can help me, and I have no idea what cookie retirement is. So let's see how everybody's doing. Freaking out. Okay, so mainly freaking out, anticipate solutions are coming, and a few for hoping this session will help me. Great. So Emily is top of the leaderboard. Nice one, Emily. So this is a multi-select, so you can pick as many as you want. Which of these is going to help with cookie retirement? So we've got options for data onboarding, contextual advertising, we've got cake JavaScript, and we've got flock cohorts. So how many of those have you heard about? Think are maybe going to help you a little bit with the phasing out of cookies. So nobody was quiet with her cake JavaScript. Amazing. Yes, all of those are going to be able to help you with cookie retirement. So quick, true or false, first-party data is more important now than ever. How are we all feeling about first-party data? So it's definitely been a hot topic over the last couple of months, something that we've been talking to clients a lot about. And let's see, yeah, everybody is on board with first-party data. Emma is taking the lead. And we've got another multi-select. So which platforms do you think will be affected by changes to cookies and data capture? So we've got Google, we have Facebook, we have email, and we've got direct mail. So you can pick as many of those as you think are going to be affected. So all of them, and yeah, direct mail won't be one, seeing as that's an offline. Kieran, looking good. Emma is on fire. So the Internet Advertising Bureau standard, what do we think that's going to be? Do we think it's going to be the flock cohort, which is Google's standard, Unified ID 2.0? We don't yet know, or we're going to be looking at LiveRamp, personally identifiable information. Any ideas? A mix. So yeah, they're definitely all contenders, but we don't yet know is the correct answer. James is taking the lead, is on fire. Okay, so how much revenue does Google generate from advertising? 89 billion, 10 billion, 100 billion, or 147 billion? It's a lot by any of those standards. So a mix, but yep, the right answer is 147 billion. And do we think that they're going to give up on that 147 billion? Yes, privacy is their number one goal, and that is going to be what they're going to do. It's unlikely that they're going to leave all of that on the table, or they're going to come up with something bigger and better. Let's see how everybody's feeling. Come up with something bigger and better, and unlikely they'll leave it on the table. So yes, I think they will all move towards some sort of privacy standard, but it's hard to imagine that these ad tech giants are going to be giving up that volume of revenue. So Emma, well done. Position 3, Kieran, position 2, and number 1 is James. Well done. Amazing. Congratulations. So yeah, we just have to give you a virtual round of applause. So really just a bit of fun to get us started, and we'll move on to the rest of the content. Okay. Great. So thank you so much, guys, for participating in that. And it's really good just to see where everybody's at in terms of cookie retirement just now. So let's start with the issue. The issue that we're all talking about is the phasing out of third-party cookies. So Google announced towards, I think it was January 2021, that they were no longer going to be supporting third-party cookies by January 2022. That has now been delayed until mid-2023, and I would be surprised if there is any further delays on that. I think the thing to keep in mind is that cookie blockers have been around since the early 2000s. There's been lots of different retirements of different types of cookies and blockers, so it's not really a huge surprise that cookies are finally being phased out. At this point, it's important to note that we're just talking about third-party cookies. So you've got your first-party cookies, which captures things like email address, retains password, and that's really based on creating a really strong user experience for the website that you're actually on. The cookies that are being phased out are third-party. So these are generally cookies that are used for advertising purposes. So when we're saying to you, oh, can you add this pixel to your website, or you've got different ones on the website for Facebook or AdRoll or Google, it's ultimately capturing information about users, using that to profile them, using it for retargeting, and also using it for conversion tracking. So we definitely have used cookies for lots of different things, but we now need to look for alternatives. So third-party cookies are ultimately the way that ad platforms are learning about user preferences, learning about personalized advertising across the entire ad network. We've been able to store third-party cookies for up to 540 days and create lots of different types of retargeting, lookalike audiences, similar audiences based on those type of cookies. But we'll be able to still keep anything with username and passwords, but the third-party cookies will be phased out. So what are the solutions that we can think about? And there's a few different tech alternatives to think about and how we're kind of seeing ad technology changing. So one of the things that we've been doing is using data onboarding platforms. So some examples of data onboarding platforms are companies like LiveRamp, Signal, Oracle OnRamp. And ultimately what these platforms are doing is they're taking data that you've got. So this is maybe going to be email addresses or phone numbers, and you upload it to the platform. The platform will then match it with all different data sources. So they have huge offline databases from Dun & Bradstreet, from Sainsbury's, from Bank of America, and they also have online data sources. So they basically take the data that you've got, they enrich it, and then we put that data back into ad technology platforms. The idea being when you upload a custom list, so a list of email addresses or phone numbers to Google or Facebook, you're maybe getting like a 10 to 30% match rate. When you run it through one of these data onboarding platforms, that match rate should be improving to maybe 60 or 70%. And I think those are working well for some data sets, especially consumer data sets. But the other thing that I'd say that we've noticed is over time, the match rates are improving directly on your custom list. So when you're uploading to Google and to Facebook, those match rates are creeping up. And I think it's because of all of this. You know, it's because it needs to get better in order to replace the revenue that they're going to lose from the cookies. So we've definitely seen an improvement in that. And I would liken it to when we used to talk about lookalike audiences, like maybe 5 years ago. They weren't great. It was very random. Whereas now it's highly targeted, it's highly personalized, and kind of giving people that feeling that Facebook and Google are listening to them because it's predictive advertising ultimately. So data onboarding is definitely good for right now, but going forward, I wouldn't be surprised if the match rates increase dramatically on the platforms. So that gives you something that you can do right now today, and it's working. We've then got the flock cohorts, which is Google's privacy sandbox, basically, that they're working on. So what they're doing is taking all the data that they collect and building anonymous interest behaviours. They've said that this innovation can deliver results nearly as effective as cookie-based approaches. So the difference would be if you're running an event, say, and you do it for coffee, and typically you would be retargeting to all of the people that have visited the website. Now what you're doing is Google are looking contextually and interest-based at all the people that like coffee and their behaviours, and you'll be able to target a segment of users based on the interest and the behaviours of the masses. So Google will still allow for some tracking within that, but there will be privacy controls in place. So ultimately, we're seeing it the same way that Facebook is just now. Targeting will be a little bit fuzzier, but there will still be absolutely targeting options that you're able to action. They'll be looking more at conversion modeling rather than direct conversion attribution. And again, that's based on the behavior of lots of people and providing ways that they can target and track that. Some people said that this might be the IAB standard, but similarly, we've also got Unified ID 2.0, which is an open source API. Again, that's using encrypted emails. So one thing just to note on the Flock cohorts is that Google won't be using any personally identifiable information the way that LiveRamp do, or Oracle, or any of those onboarding. It's going to be based on interests, whereas everything else that we're talking about is based on emails. So we've got Unified ID 2.0, open source, using encrypted emails and enriching the relationship between publishers and advertisers. You can use all of these. It isn't to say that there's going to be one thing. The likelihood is you'll be using data onboarding to enrich your data. You'll be using the Flock cohorts as part of Google's advertising, and you'll be using a Unified ID 2.0, say for your programmatic for Trade Desk or other platforms. And then we've also got SWAN, which is consent to platform using email as a stable identifier. So keeping in mind, again, we're coming back to email as the unification. And that is based on users explicitly giving their consent to the platform, which is something that we're definitely seeing resistance around. But it means that you would be able to target users who've given their emails to the platform. And again, they're using email to connect the advertisers and the publishers. So all of those we anticipate being used more heavily and being lent on more heavily as we move over the next kind of 18 months. Some of the other solutions is invest elsewhere. So one of the biggest things is definitely first-party data. So what we mean by that is building really strong email addresses that are based on content, that are based on all of the information that you guys are sending out as a brand, to ensure that you're not relying on cookies and you're using custom audiences. So you've got very kind of bottom of the funnel first party data that you can then remarket to. So remarketing isn't going away, it's just remarketing to cookie-based audiences that are going away. So I feel like since the pandemic, there's been a huge shift into first party data, building email, and then utilizing that email for lots of different objectives as you go throughout the year. And of course, lots of our clients run events, and there's not this focus always just on the event. There's different content, there's webinars, is that person going to move into a delegate or an exhibitor bucket? So really investing in your first party data with a 365 approach is going to protect you against the retirement of cookies. And then investing more in social and contextual advertising, which again is going to get smarter, it's going to get more intelligent, and spending more budget there, so you're not worried about losing, your share of your audience from your retargeting. And then finally, don't freak out. We're not going to see, a large portion of advertising just disappear purely from the fact that the advertisers will not let that revenue go. You're not going to see Facebook and Google just stop that portion of revenue. As you can see, they're building things like Flock cohorts. Facebook have brought out lots of different ad targeting. So it's going to just move into a bigger and better solution ultimately. Also, they're not going to want companies that are doing data onboarding getting that slice of the pie. So I think it's not beyond the realms of possibility that we will see things like much more improved custom match, enriching data services, and better lookalikes based on that data. So we'll move on to an issue that probably any of our clients that are on today has experienced a change or a challenge with. We had the iOS 14 update earlier in the year. So previously, apps had the ability to track your usage within the app on the mobile web, but now with iOS 14, all apps must ask for permission to track usage, and lots of users are saying, no, I'd rather that you didn't actually track me and all of my user behavior, because I don't want it to be. So that's definitely caused some issues, but there are things that we can use to combat those issues. So why this matters is if iPhone users aren't allowing this tracking, then ads become less relevant and it drives up the price of advertising. We also don't have the support anymore for our breakdowns. So our breakdowns were things like, where is our ads being delivered? What actions are users taking? We also don't have age, gender, region, and placement aren't going to be supported in your reporting anymore. And we've got less view. We used to be able to look at view through. So for conversion modeling, if somebody saw an ad and then converted within a day, we could see that. And also we could look over a 28-day period, whereas that's all been shortened to 7 days. So we've got a much shorter attribution window, and we're not able to do the same in terms of view through. However, you are able to combat some of these changes, and ultimately these are all being done to protect the privacy of users, to stop spamming. Facebook and Google always want to provide a really strong user experience, so it's about for valid advertisers and for products and services that can help users. There are definitely ways to continue to advertise to those users. So one of the first things that you need to do, that you might have already been asked by our team, is you need to verify your domain on your Facebook accounts. So you're basically saying, yes, this is our website and we are the advertiser that's advertising on behalf of that website. It's to prevent spam, and it's to, make sure that people are who they say they are ultimately. One of the challenges is definitely if you're using third-party forms, which some of you might experience. For instance, if you've got a website and then you've got a third-party registration provider, then it's harder, and Facebook don't want you to do that. They basically just want all of the forms within the one website. They have backtracked a little bit and have, I think there was such a backlash from so many e-commerce providers, event providers, that they have kind of backtracked a little bit, and we are able to track a few more conversion events than we were before. So they have designed aggregated event measurement. So we're able to measure campaign performance in a way that's consistent with consumer decisions about their data. So we're supporting marketers where they're running effective campaigns, but also protecting the privacy of Facebook users. So it's more encrypted, and Facebook aren't actually seeing your data, which I think has made people more comfortable, but it's also still providing a good option to advertisers who ultimately are funding everything that Facebook are doing. So they've already come up with some new targeting ideas. We've got special ad categories is one example, which is encompassing ads on, say, topics of election, politics, credit, employment, and the audience targeting for those is very strict. So again, if that's the kind of topic, then they're really, clamping down to make sure that that's valid. And then also we've got integration with lots of different partners. Say, for instance, we've got Lytics as an example, to make sure that we're enriching the data that we can target on Facebook, and it's opening up other options if you've maybe had a restriction from iOS or retargeting pixels. Keep in mind that Android takes up 85% of the mobile market and iOS is about 14%. So that change, whilst it is definitely a change, and you definitely need to kind of combat it with different setups to your kind of website URLs or your pixel strategy, it's not going to stop you being able to advertise on Facebook or stop you advertising in apps. You still are able to do it. Not everybody's selecting no as well. And there's so much data that the modeling is becoming much more accurate, and we're still able to track up to 8 events. One of the other issues that has come up is mail privacy protection. So this one's a little vague, I would say, because we're talking about iOS 15, which we think is going to be out in September, and Apple are degrading email pixels, which is really how we're able to track an open rate. So the Mail app is blocking IP addresses, and we're not able to track the open pixel, which we normally use. So what matters is open rate has been a key ingredient for optimizing our email marketing. As we all know, it's bread and butter. But with this change, it's going to make open rate even more unreliable. So the solutions, it's a work in progress, but there isn't really a silver bullet for this one. The benchmarks really is looking at what was your current open rate, what's your current percentage of audience using iOS, and look at what the difference are once this change actually comes into play, probably later in the year. Again, you want to lean more on first-party data and look at your click-through rate over your open rate, which we've all been looking at, but it's just going to reinforce that even more. So we've spoken quite a lot about first-party data, and I think it's just important to talk a little bit about what do we mean by that? How do you actually do that? And how are you going to reach, how are you going to use that data once you've built it all? So data, as we all now know, is more valuable than oil. There's 5,000 data points that are being picked up on all of us to, share really with advertisers and with companies to model, how would you actually reach that audience? And that's true of all different types of digital advertising, not just cookie-based. So the way to combat that is provide a really good user experience to the people that want to engage with your brand, which is what all the ad tech platforms are really pushing us to do anyway. So you want to be reaching your audience with really strong content. So that might be webinars, that might be surveys, that might be white papers, anything that your audience is actually going to be interested in. So before, when you maybe buy in email addresses and things like that, people aren't interested now. So we want to be invest your budget and create really strong content, amplify that content when you're going out to the marketplace, and then take all of those email addresses to advertise to once, they've said that, yes, they do want to engage with the brand. So you always want to be capturing email. Yes, phone number is part of it, but really email is going to give you a lot more leverage in terms of what you're able to do with it, how you can enrich that data, and how you can find new audiences that are like those email addresses. You're then going to take those email lists and upload them to your ad tech platform. So all ad tech now is supporting custom lists. Google was kind of last to the party with it, but we're seeing much stronger match rates, and we're seeing similar audiences being created, and then that's informing all different types of targeting as well. Then you want to create new audiences based on that existing data. So you're going to find similar audiences, and you're going to be able to layer that so that you're not spending lots of money on, quite tenuous links to similar audiences. It's going to be much more targeted because you can layer that with whatever you like. I just want to touch on third-party data as well, because whilst we're retiring third-party cookies, third-party data is another way that you can kind of underpin your whole digital marketing strategy, how you can reach new users and how you can do that at relatively low cost. So this is an example of some of the audiences that are available to us in this is in DV360. So this is Google's programmatic network. And what we're able to do is all of these lists are available for you to utilize. So companies like IOTA or LiveRamp, as well as providing their data onboarding and enrichment services, they also have built all of these different lists that you're able to target for a price. So for instance, you've got in the data store people who are in distillery and they're working in the food industry, and we've got extreme confidence that they're in kind of buy mode. So for us, when we've got clients, say in restaurant and food industries or in nutrition, it means that we're able to still find these really, really targeted audience segments using third-party data, pay something between maybe $1 to $3 CPM, so that's cost per 1,000 impressions, to target those lists. And it means that we're able to create that kind of top of the funnel, but still very targeted and not too expensive portion of data that's allowing us to constantly be replacing anything that we might have lost from remarketing for cookies. So an example here would be if you're running campaigns to this third-party data, you're thinking, well, what content would those people be interested in? Sending out your content, sending out your lead gen, targeting that audience, and then it means that you're buying in all of these really strong email addresses interested in what you're selling at something like, I don't know, say you've got an £8 or $8 cost per registration, you'd maybe be looking to bring in leads at $2 or $3, something like that. So it's a really effective strategy to keep building that audience based on data, but not necessarily cookie data. The types of campaigns that you can do, you've got different campaign objectives. So you're driving new data traffic to your website at a very high volume. You're using all different types of campaign targeting. So like I mentioned there, display, search, video, and social. You can really get creative with your different ad types. So you can do display, in-stream video, search, or top of the funnel social, and you're looking at clicks, impressions, CTR, and a cost per lead. So building that awareness strategy, you've got display ads, YouTube ads, job title and interest ads, and you're also thinking about copy around about what is your brand, what the event or product is, why it's necessary, and educating your user to give them enough to provide an email address that you can then go on to use in the rest of your digital marketing. So a couple of examples of this, a kind of always on strategy or data build strategy or first party data strategy. There's lots of different titles really for what is the same thing. You can do ebooks, you can do industry reports, you can do key content pieces, case studies, awards, launch videos, anything that you can do that is genuinely serving the interests of your user base or your potential user base, and then using that content to create really strong first-party data lists. So that is everything that we've got to cover. I'm going to stop sharing and I will go back to our questions, and I think Steph is going to help me. So from Kieran, let's see, Steph's showing this here. So are there any limits on how many cohorts a user could be part of? If it's unlimited, does it come back on how an advertiser is bidding to get their ads in front of them? So we don't know yet, Kieran, is the honest answer. Google haven't released everything in terms of the specifics of what a cohort is going to be made up of, but we would say it's based on user behavior. So users are people with interest in lots of different things. So yeah, I guess in theory, you could be part of a more kind of B2B cohort that's quite focused on what you do as a job, for instance, or you could also be part of, you know, maybe like a parenting demographic or in market for buying a house or something like that as well. So I wouldn't think there would be a limit. I think naturally a limit will occur because you're only going to do so many things as a user. And yeah, it will be based on an auction. So, you know, if we go back to that third-party data example, we've got those same segments that we can do for cohorts. We would imagine that we can say, okay, they're in this cohort, which is based on their interest and their demographics and all their behaviors. But actually, we're going to go a bit further and say, you know, are they in market for purchasing behavior? So once you kind of get further down the funnel to those more narrow kind of bottom of the funnel targeting groups, then yes, you're definitely going to have to pay more. The broader it is, the cheaper it is, and the more targeted it is, generally the more expensive it's going to be. So yeah, but also we don't have the specifics of exactly what the rules are going to be yet, but I would imagine we'll have that by the end of this year, start of next year. What platforms have you seen best for gathering data? So we've seen, I would say social had the edge on this. Facebook and LinkedIn has been really strong, especially since the acquisition by Microsoft, for lead generation, for, you know, really nice kind of responsive creative options. We would say that social has outperformed. However, not to be outdone, Google has come out with a whole host of new features for lead generation, which I'll actually add in just to that last slide before we share the deck. And they're making it easier to submit a lead kind of in platform. Ultimately, I think with lead generation, you want to do as much in platform as you can, use your native features, and then have that linking to your CRM system. So it's seamless for you guys as marketers when you're trying to, you know, make sense of all of that data, but also it's just in the platform, and users, you know, if they can do it in one click, they will. Whereas I think what we'd seen on Google was it was a little more, it was a longer user journey basically, whereas now we're seeing that shorter. They're putting the features kind of into search, into display, and they're building the same native that social had. So keep an eye out for it. It's changing. You'll start to see it in search. But yeah, I'd say probably social. If you've got a small budget, you would maybe just stick with social because the Google features are a little newer. Would you recommend running campaigns promoting content for data capture now? Yes, I think that's exactly what we're seeing, Kieran, is thinking about this kind of year-round approach. And I feel that's kind of what the pandemic has done naturally, is just fast forwarded us all who were talking about this kind of 365 approach and building data based on like who is our audience and what kind of content are they interested in. And we might not know exactly what they're going to do. So in your lead gen campaign, someone can come in maybe as a visitor, say year 1, and then year 2 they become an exhibitor. So I think it's about finding who those kind of target audience groups are, and then bringing them in, and then kind of nurturing them into the right user journey, because there's so much more in terms of products that we've seen our clients come out with. So there's digital platforms, and there's kind of resource bases that we're seeing. So connecting buyers and suppliers. And then you've got your virtual events, and then you've got your live events, and then you've got your subscriptions and your training. So I feel like there's a lot more routes that your users can go to. So I think it's about building a quality user base. And definitely, those ones that maybe need a little bit more nurturing, it's always better to have them earlier. And I think you can analyse your data better as well when you're doing it year round, rather than that kind of crazy 12-week period that we've all been quite used to. You can kind of see the peaks and troughs throughout the year. So yeah, I would say and that changes, I know, a lot for our clients in terms of how their budgets are done. Typically you maybe got assigned a new budget after the event, whereas now I think it's about how do we actually make that budget work harder for us over the course of the year and get more out of those people that are giving us their data. And now you guys have got a lot more products that you can showcase to them. So how do you get them engaging with more products per user too? Have we got any more questions? Oh, sorry, that just popped up. Have we seen a big difference in cost between data onboarding platforms? So yes, there are lots of different pricing models, and some of these are pretty expensive. In general, you're going to be paying some sort of retainer fee, which is probably between, I don't know, maybe 10 up to 20, 30,000, something like that, depending on the amount of data that you've got. And then you'll also pay a CPM cost. There are some that will also do a percentage of spend, some that are doing CPM. So there is a lot of differences. It's quite a laborious process, but going through all of the data onboarding platforms, doing free trials, and then also any data onboarding platform that you're thinking about taking on, anyone that's kind of worth their salt would give you a free match test. So do a match test for your data, because ultimately that's the value that they're saying they're providing is we can improve your match rate by 30 or 40%. Cool, that's fine. So you'll give them a sample of data, get them to run it through their system, and then see what the match rate is and how does that compare to what you're getting already. So yeah, we've gone for LiveRamp in the end, has been our platform of choice. But anybody that's kind of doing it themselves, then spend the time, go through your kind of top 15. I think we maybe actually posted an analysis on it. I will double check that and share afterwards. But yeah, spend the time going through it, and if you don't have a ton of time and you're quite sure on the one you want, make sure that you run a match test, because again, there's differences between consumer and B2B data. Great. Okay, well, thanks for all the questions, guys. Really appreciate you joining. We will share the recording afterwards. Please feel free to share with the rest of your team. Any questions you've got, drop me a line, laura@tagdigital.co.uk. Thank you and have a great day.